Hello, welcome to This Is Entertainment. I'm here to talk to you about one of my favourite films, Night of the Living Dead. This was the debut feature film of director George Romero. He co-wrote the screenplay with John Russo. Together with producer and actor Russell Striner and producer Carl Hardman, they formed a small Pittsburgh-based company called Image 10 to finance and make the movie. The ensemble cast was composed of local actors and associates, most notably Dwayne Jones and Judith O'Dea, none of whom were established stars. With a starting budget of only about $6,000, pooled from 10 investors, each contributing $600, the filmmakers paused production multiple times to raise more funds, eventually reaching a modest budget in the range of $100,000. Shooting took place in rural western Pennsylvania between July 1967 and January 1968. Key scenes were filmed in Evans City, including these opening sequences at the Evans City Cemetery. Lacking funds for a built set, Romero's team rented an old farmhouse slated for demolition to serve as the main location, even cutting a fake basement door into a wall since the actual cellar was unusable. Conditions were primitive. The house had no running water, so crew members camped there and bathed in a nearby creek during production. Romero, who had experience in commercials and guerrilla filmmaking, shot on 35mm black and white film to save money. This low-budget cinema verite approach gave the film a stark, newsreel-like realism, lending the horror film a documentary feel. The resource limitations led to ingenious low-cost effects. Night of the Living Dead was graphic for its time, but the gore was created with simple means. For instance, Bosco chocolate syrup stood in for blood, liberally drizzled on actors in black and white scenes. The flesh the ghoulish zombies devour was actually roasted ham and animal organs procured from a local butcher, who was also an investor and actor in the film. Makeup was rudimentary. Early in production, the ghouls were given a pale complexion with darkened eyes, and later, some mortician's wax was used to simulate wounds and decay. The filmmakers even improvised dialogue and action. Actress Judith O'Dea recalled that, rather than rigid scripting, they would go over what basically had to be done, and then do it the way each felt it should be done. Actor Dwayne Jones took an active role in shaping his character Ben, rewriting much of Ben's dialogue to make him more articulate and educated, instead of the blue-collar truck driver stereotype originally envisioned. Nearly every aspect of production presented challenges. The 6-month shoot was protracted and laborious for the novice filmmakers. Because funds were so tight, crew members wore multiple hats. Cast and crew all pitched in with tasks like loading camera magazines, building props, recording sound, and editing film in a true shoestring operation. The graphic content also posed a challenge for distribution. After the film was completed, finding a distributor willing to handle such an uncompromising horror film proved difficult. Major studios balked at its grisly scenes or the lack of colour. Columbia Pictures passed on it for being in black and white, and American International Pictures wanted a happier ending and tamer violence, which the producers refused. Eventually, the independent Walter Reed organization agreed to distribute the film without changes, but insisted on renaming it from the original working title, Night of the Flesh Eaters, to Night of the Living Dead, due to a conflict with a prior film title. In the process of retitling, the film's copyright notice was accidentally omitted, causing Night of the Living Dead to enter the public domain upon release. This mistake meant the producers lost out on considerable royalties, but it also unintentionally allowed the film to spread far and wide. Despite all obstacles, Romero's inexperience proved less a hindrance than a strength. Critics later praised the film's taut editing, effective use of shadows, and the grim intensity achieved under such limited means. Night of the Living Dead landed in theaters in October 1968, a tumultuous time in American history. The film's most groundbreaking aspect was the casting of Dwayne Jones, an African-American, as the heroic lead Ben, something virtually unheard of in 1960s Hollywood, for a role not explicitly written for a black actor. In fact, this was the first time an African-American actor was cast as the star and hero of an American horror film. and one of the first instances in any genre where a black actor was simply cast on merit for a role not defined by race. Romero long maintained that Jones was chosen because he gave the best audition, not to make any particular social statement. Nevertheless, the mere presence of a black protagonist in a largely white cast and the tragic, ironic fate that befalls him resonated strongly against the backdrop of the late 60s civil rights struggle. In an America reeling from the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in April 1968, audiences and critics could not help but see parallels in Ben's death at the hands of an all-white posse. In the final moments, Ben survives the night of flesh-eating ghouls only to be mistaken for a monster and shot by rural vigilantes. His body then tossed onto a fire, images that evoke the real violence directed at African Americans during the civil rights era. What might have been merely a bleak twist ending in another context here became, in retrospect, a potent commentary on racial prejudice, intentional or not. The casting of Jones and the film's unflinching ending offered a more honest exploration of 1960s America than anything produced by Hollywood, exposing deep social wounds in the guise of a horror story. Daily images of the Vietnam War also defined the late 1960s, and Night of the Living Dead absorbed that grim atmosphere into its style and narrative. Unlike earlier Gothic horror set in distant lands, Romero's tale unfolds in America's own heartland, in rural Pennsylvania, the zombie carnage grotesquely echoing the conflict then raging in Vietnam. The film's pseudo-documentary black and white look intentionally mimics the grainy newsreels and television reports of the day. Iconic photographs such as the Napalm Girl would have been fresh in the minds of the filmmakers and audience, and the visual language of the film, such as roving helicopter search parties, improvised militia, and charred corpses, draws from the media vocabulary of Vietnam. Even the montage of still images in the closing credits shows deputies using meat hooks to drag bodies to bonfires. Uncannily resembles contemporary war reportage and atrocity photos. In this way, Night of the Living Dead tapped into the collective anxiety of a society witnessing its own living dead, young soldiers returning in body bags on the evening news. The sense of an inexplicable, pervasive threat destroying the fabric of normal life carried obvious parallels to both Vietnam and domestic unrest.